right. For those whose native language is not Latvian, I just want to inform you that I'll say a few sentences in Latvian just to prepare the audience. Labrīt, godātie webināra dalībnieki. Es vienkārši atgādināšu, ka šodien pasākums notiek angļu valodā, bet tiek nodrošināts arī tulkojums. Ja jūs vēlaties tulkojumu uz latviešu valodu, tad Zoom lietotnē jums ir jānospiež uz podziņu, kas atgādina tā kā piktogrammu, kas atgādina zemeslodi ar meridiāniem un ar nosaukumu interpretation, un jāizvēlās latviešu valoda kā tā valoda, kur jūs dzirdēsiet, un tad jūs varēsiet arī sekot līdzi sarunai latviešu valodā. Ja jums tā ir ērtāk, katrā ziņā šī iespēja tiek nodrošināta, varat to droši izmantot. Un tad es pāriešu tālāk uz angļu valodu, ņemot vērā, ka arī mums viesi runātāji angļu valodā, un turpināsim angļu valodā. Paldies, ka esat pieteikušies, un turpinām. So, good morning, everybody. The time has come for yet another learning event. The previous one took place in February, if I remember correctly. This year, it was early February. It was winter time, and everybody was thinking actively about energy efficiency because it was winter time. But nobody actually was thinking of what is going to come. And we all know what was to come. And last but not least, energy prices are probably the most important and most significant driving factor behind thinking about improving energy efficiency. So you're welcome to this learning event on how to promote deep renovation in multi-apartment and public buildings. The event is organized by the Latvian Environmental Investment Fund in cooperation with the Energy Consulting Network from Denmark, National Energy Conservation Agency in Poland, and with the support of Ministry of Economics of Latvia and Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development of Latvia, with good cooperation also from the Finance Association Latvia. So today we are going to have, if I'm not mistaken, 5 good presentations, 5 interesting presentations. The essence of it is what changes do we have to expect in the near future in terms of the regulatory framework for energy efficiency, and Serena Pontoglio from the European Commission will be the first speaker, and she will enlighten us about these upcoming changes in the Energy Performance in Buildings Directive, which the member states will have to implement, transpose the norms. So changes are coming, and it is important to know what sort of changes we will be facing in very near future already. I'm absolutely sure that our Ministry of Economy, which is still the ministry which is responsible for energy efficiency policy and measures, and it will be following closely these amendments in the directive, and it will be able to transpose it smoothly. But the good thing is that we have expert opinions at hand, and which can help us prepare ourselves not only for these new formal frameworks, but also for practical activities in terms of implementing energy efficiency measures, and advise us on best practices in their respective countries through projects that have been implemented, and also warn us about things which we have to be aware as of things which may cause problems and issues in the process of implementing energy efficiency projects and measures and policies, of course, as well. So my slogan these days is, if not the high energy prices, then what else? And definitely this also goes hand in hand with the notion that the best energy is the energy that we do not have to produce. So we don't have to use resources, either domestic resources or imported energy resources, especially imported fossil energy resources. And since we know that plenty of energy in the European Union, and of course it consists of individual member states, but still plenty of energy in the European Union altogether is spent on heating buildings where we either work or live, then there's huge potential to decrease the volume of energy which is used for heating buildings, while still maintaining the comfort of being in these buildings, either for living or for working or social activities. So these things, I think, altogether, the high prices, the too much energy that we spend for heating buildings, these factors aggregate altogether in a collection of factors which should motivate us not only think about energy efficiency measures, but also fill in this so-called intention-action gap, and not only think about it, but also engage in actual energy efficiency measures. And this is where it is relevant that expertise from experts, from institutions, and from practical implementation of energy efficiency projects, say through house owners associations, where this expertise is relevant, and it is important to share this expertise. So the idea of this workshop is not to be a conference or a typical seminar, but rather function as a sort of a brainstorm where we exchange the most up-to-date and outstanding information, exchange our knowledge and information about best practices, and discuss issues and how can those be solved, which is even more relevant than speaking about barriers, because we have been speaking about barriers for a long time. I think most of us are aware of the barriers that exist to energy efficiency, and the most important thing is that we find ways how to overcome these barriers. All right, since it looks like we are ready to go ahead with the presentations, I would like to just remind you one last thing, which is a technical thing. If you have questions, please save those for the discussion, for questions and answers part of the agenda. I would prefer if we go swiftly through the presentations. We collect certain issues, write them down probably, not to forget them. And once we've heard all the speakers, it will be also easier for us to navigate through the overall context of these energy efficiency issues. So please save your questions for the questions and answers session. We will have enough time to ask questions and for the speakers to answer questions. There is one exception though, and that exception is, let me see, we will probably allow questions to Serena, since she is not sure if she will be able to remain until the end of the webinar, of the workshop. So you can ask questions after the first presentation. All right, so Serena, the floor is yours. Please go ahead and enlighten us about what we have to expect in the near future.
Thank you very much, Rainis, for the introduction, and good morning to all the participants and the interpreters. I am just trying to upload my presentation, so please bear with me. As Rainis indicated, the main goal of my presentation today for this event is to give you a bit an overview, an update of what is going on in terms of policies at EU level regarding buildings, and in particular what is happening in the context of the revision of the energy performance of building directive, and the policy background for this, and to focus really on the elements of the PPD revision that are more relevant in relation to investment for renovation and financial instruments that are needed to support the renovation of buildings. I always like to start by recalling a bit some elements and data regarding the EU building stock. As we all know, Europe is the old continent, and this is also reflected in the status of the building stock. Which at the same time has also impacts on the level of energy performance and of energy efficiency of our buildings. So we have definitely a very large building stock, but it's also an old building stock. 85% of existing buildings were built before the year 2000. And we know that the energy requirements for building were introduced basically after the previous energy crisis. So the large majority of the buildings that we have now standing were built when there were no energy standards in the building codes, and therefore the energy performance is on average quite low. Buildings are also renovated every year for different reasons, for functional reasons mainly, and to some extent also for energy reasons. We have assessed that on average 11% of existing buildings every year undergo some changes, some level of renovations, but the level of energy renovation is still quite low. So the opportunity of changing functions buildings and combining these changes also with improvement in the energy performance is not there, does not often take place, and on average only 1% of the European buildings are undergo energy renovation every year. And the result of the fact that the energy performance is quite poor, but also that, of course, we spend a lot of time in buildings, is that basically buildings are the largest consumers of energy in the EU, more than transport, more than industry. Almost 40% of the energy we consume is used in buildings, and this also is reflected in a very high share, around 36% of greenhouse gas emissions that are emitted in the building stock. To address this issue and to increase the level and the rate of energy renovation, already with the European Green Deal, several actions were foreseen at the European level. The overall aim of this was really to step up and double the rate of energy renovation, and at the same time to increase investments and make available dedicated financial instruments for building renovation at larger scale, bearing in mind that energy renovation will also bring benefits to the economy, because there are, of course, the markets related to energy renovations, to construction, the manufacturing of products, appliances, materials that are necessary to energy renovations, and bring benefit to the society as a whole, because we reduce our energy dependence, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions, but also to individuals. Because it reduces the energy bills and increase comfort in our house and homes. In particular, in the context of the energy of the European Green Deal, there was a specific strategy for buildings, which is the renovation wave. with the aim of doubling energy renovation, but which was adopted in 2020. But then, as Rainis recalled, our context today in relation to the use of energy has dramatically changed. And it becomes, therefore, even more relevant to invest in the energy renovation of buildings. And at European level, in March and then in May last year, the Commission has adopted a REPowerEU plan with the goal of saving energy, producing clear energy, and diversifying energy supplies. And lots of actions have been taken in that context. But what is also a clear message coming out of it, of course, we need to save energy in the short term, this winter, next winter, also through our behaviors, and not to waste energy. But at the same time, what we are doing, which will take a bit more time, through the implementation of the renovation waste strategy, to really have stronger rules in relation to the energy performance of buildings, is really also the solution to the crisis that we have now. So we need to continue what we are doing and to improve our legislation on buildings. And in relation to that, the Energy Performance of Building Directive, which is the key legislative instrument at EU level, together with the Energy Efficiency Directive more broadly, it was decided already in the context of the Green Deal to revise it, and a proposal has been adopted in December last year. And this revision, of course, now we look at it in a different light, and it has also been somehow strengthened by adding additional provisions on solar energy in buildings through the REPowerEU plan. Before going into the specific elements that we are revising in DPBD, I would like just to show you some slides regarding what I mentioned before in relation to the economic benefits of energy renovations. We have made some calculations regarding how much we can save in our energy bill by upgrading buildings that are in the lowest class, in the G class, so the worst performing buildings, to higher classes, so to class D, which is not a high class, it's still an average class. But in principle, of course, there are several differences between countries, between member states. But when we upgrade a G energy class building, or a GF, by 2 classes, this allows a reduction of energy consumption by 30–40%. Of course, this is different depending on the climate we are, depending on several issues. So take these figures with a pinch of salt, but the message is clear. We have in the slides also some examples showing also from the point of view of the comfort, of the aesthetic, etc. What is the impact of renovating and also of having deep renovations, and also calculation of the payback of those investments, which is quite interesting to look at, because of course we know that renovation do not happen from one day to the other. We need dedicated financial instruments. We need technical assistance for assisting people and building owners to do the renovation. But the economic case for the investment is also clear. And I have here some examples of a renovation project in Romania, in Bucharest, in Estonia, which in this case was also funded through a public program, also showing a payback of 8 years for the renovation to a G class, to class E of a multi-apartment building. And I have also this slide about deep renovation in Hungary, and you can see the pictures are really dates of almost 20 years ago. which means that definitely we have the technology, we have the solutions to make renovation. It's not, it's a market which is mature, but we know that there are many barriers, and definitely to have a clear regulatory framework and to have dedicated financial instrument is what is really needed to help and support people and building owners in doing the renovations. Okay, I will move now to some explanations regarding which are the main elements of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which the Commission has proposed to revise. I don't know how much familiar you are with the EPBD directive, but it's basically a directive that has been adopted in its original text several years ago, that was already amended a couple of times, and basically set the framework also for the energy performance classes of buildings, and then identify standards, energy standards, especially for new buildings and also for buildings undergoing major renovations, and also has a set of rules regarding, for instance, inspections of buildings and technical building system. So it's really the key legislative element on the energy performance of buildings, which is transposed and applied in every member state. And with the revision, the aim was really to strengthen it, to allow for more renovations to take place, and also to have deeper energy renovations. So to ensure that when a renovation is done, really the best technology is used so that energy savings can be achieved in an optimal and cost-effective way. So the first box that you see in this slide identify the key new provisions or updates regarding the renovation of buildings. And one of it is the introduction of building renovation plans, which will substitute what we have already now, also in Latvia and in all EU member states, which is the long-term renovation strategies, which is a very important planning instrument at national level to identify the key policies for renovating buildings and the key segment of the building stock, the key targets and goal. But we have foreseen to strengthen this tool, to make it more operational and to link it also more to the available budget and investment needs, and to have also dialogue of the Commission with the Commission that can issue recommendations or assess the plans. Then a second and very, very important new provision that we have foreseen is the introduction of minimum energy performance standards. This is possibly the most important element of the revision of the PBD, and it's basically an instrument to trigger the renovation of worst performing buildings. And in the Commission proposal, we have foreseen that G buildings will have to be upgraded to F or to E over time, starting with public buildings, but also very much addressing also residential buildings. We have also foreseen a strengthening and common criteria and more information to be included in energy performance certificates. And the introduction of a voluntary instrument, which is the renovation passport, to really help people during a renovation in the best way, step by step, in a logical way. There are also several measures related to increase really the decarbonization of buildings over time. We have a goal of climate neutrality by 2050. But we need to make progress already by 2030 and by 2040. And in this context, we have foreseen a review of the standards for new buildings. Now we have a standard which is called nearly zero energy buildings that aims for new buildings to have really high level of energy efficiency. But we are moving towards a concept which is related to zero emissions. So no emissions of greenhouse gas on site for new buildings, which means using technologies like heat pumps or compensating the use of fossil fuels with renewable technologies on site. We are also starting to address whole life cycle carbon, especially for new buildings, so to disclose information about also embodied carbon that relates to the emissions that are included in the materials that are used. And we have also foreseen that subsidies, national subsidies to fossil fuels, for instance, to gas boilers, should stop, should end, and that public funds should be instead directed towards the technologies that are related to renewable energies. We have also a new set of rules related to the modernization and system integration of buildings. I will not go into the details of that, but this relates to the strengthening of the rules regarding charging of electric cars in buildings, the increase of aspects in relation to the accessibility of data for buildings and the digitalization also of energy performance certificates, and also improvements regarding the smart readiness indicator. Regarding financing, which is a very important topic in relation to the event of today, we have foreseen to provide much clearer guidance regarding how also to set funding at a national level, clearly indicating that member states will have to support the implementation of minimum energy performance standards through dedicated funds and technical assistance, especially targeting vulnerable consumers, vulnerable households, and people affected by energy poverty. And also we have foreseen a new definition of deep renovation, which is something that, of course, is a concept that has a general understanding, but there was not a legal definition of deep renovation. And this is going to be a voluntary definition, and it is linked to the concept of zero emission buildings that I was mentioning before. One important additional information regards the process. So as I mentioned, the proposal to review the Energy Performance of Building Directive was adopted in December 2021, and it's now under negotiations in the interinstitutional process. So we had a discussion in the council with a representative from the member states. And in this regard, there were several amendments and changes that were proposed. And a general approach was adopted at the Energy Council on the 25th of October, so a few weeks ago. So now the discussion continues in the European Parliament. The Parliament is expected to also provide a mandate for the trilogues in December this year. And next year, we will start a trilogue within the three institutions, so Council, Parliament, and the Commission. And the timeline is such that we expect an adoption of the revised EPBD in spring next year. In the next slides, I have a bit more of details regarding the most important provisions that I mentioned already. This slide is about the building renovation plans, which are foreseen in Article 3, and that replace long-term renovation strategies. One important element that will distinguish is that we have foreseen a dedicated template also of these plans, really indicating the mandatory elements that we have for building renovation plans, and that we propose to have this plan every 5 years. Now we have every 10 years, but we realize that it's a too long period, that we need more checks over time, and we need a shorter timeline for those plans. I mentioned already the minimum energy performance standards and the goal to phase out worst performing buildings. Then I mentioned also the definition of deep renovation, and I will spend a bit more of time on this. So we had foreseen, basically, this definition has identified a sort of a gold standard for building renovation. And in particular, we have foreseen a definition that keeps in mind the end goal of a renovation, which should be before 2030, the achievement of nearly zero energy building. And after 2030, a renovation that basically transforms the building into a zero emission building, having a high energy performance and without emissions on site. And as I mentioned, is something that should really also drives support and financial support, and also the development of financial instruments. But it's a voluntary definition per se. Regarding financial incentives and market barriers, we have some provisions in the revised EPBD in Article 15, which basically aims at requiring the member states provide appropriate financing and support measures for building renovation. The removal of non-economic barriers, for instance, split incentives in multi-apartment buildings, which is really a key issue for the renovation of buildings. The phase out of financial incentives for fossil fuel boilers, and really much more attention and targeting of support towards vulnerable households. I will stop here. I'm happy to reply to your questions now, and I have in my slide also some further elements and links to the proposal and further elements on buildings policies in case you are interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Serena, for precise timing and for the outline of what is to come. I think there's quite an ambition in some of those points, under some of those points, and I just wonder myself if we can expect also a bit of financing channel towards achieving these more ambitious goals compared to the previous times. So I hope that the Commission has taken this into consideration so that we can handle these things swiftly, that they do not remain only as very ambitious goals, but also translate into action. Can you comment on any changes in the approach the Commission will have?
Yes. So on this, definitely, we know that there is the investment challenge in building renovation also translates in financial needs. We definitely know that it's important to have public support, so public funding available for renovation, especially for some for more vulnerable consumers or for those that cannot afford renovations. But at the same time, we know that not everything can be achieved with public funding. So it's really fundamental also to scale up the availability of financial instruments of private funding through dedicated instruments and tools. Probably we have made very few developments there were in the last years. We need definitely to have more dedicated instruments that are simpler for citizens to apply, to use. So there's definitely also a need to scale up financial instruments. Regarding funding from the EU specifically, you know that in the recovery plans we had this specific attention to building renovation through the Renovate flagship, and almost all member states basically allocated substantial funds already to building renovation. So it's really unprecedented what we are experiencing now. A lot of public funds are available now for the renovation of buildings, and you also know that from the point of view of the EU budget, we have this planning that is organized into 7 years cycle. So we have already committed funds for the ongoing period, and then we will have the next financial period later on. And normally the commitment to funds really follows what are the policy priorities. So definitely we can expect that what we have in a strengthened regulatory framework will also be accompanied by dedicated funds. We have already now the recovery plans, and in the future we can expect that this will continue. But as I mentioned, we think that it's also important to have a very clear regulatory framework that can really help in directing investments into building renovation. So we need to work on both sides.
Thank you for the comment. There is I'll allow one more question here. There's a question in the chat to you about Hungary, example of Hungary. So what is the energy tariff? Because the 7-year payback period seems very, very short. Could you please elaborate a bit on that, if you can?
Yeah, so this was, as you have seen, a big multi-apartment building. It was a deep renovation. I don't have in mind specifically what were the energy prices and what were the specific calculations behind it, but in the slide that you will receive, there is a link to a full report that basically explains what are the calculation made, and also the examples that I have put in my slides from other countries and the general table. The data are really taken from real examples of renovations. We have a database which is publicly acceptable, which is publicly accessible, which is called Deep Database of Investment in energy efficiency, including in energy renovations, and the data were taken really from there, and this comes from real investments and projects in building renovation.
Good. So it means that people simply can check out the links to get more detailed information about specific projects. All right, so that is a good thing, I think. And I can just remind that
just to add on the payback period is that one general comment to share is that it's a bit surprising, but what we have seen is that deeper renovation have a shorter payback time. Because of course, when you do a small renovation, also the impacts on the energy bill is smaller, so the payback is longer. While when you do a deeper renovation, of course, the upfront investment is much higher, but also the savings are higher, and the payback is shorter.
Yes, that seems to correspond also the theory and the observations from practical examples also locally in Latvia. There are not so many examples, but still deep renovation provides better effect, although the upfront investment, of course, is higher. That is true. I don't see any other questions at this moment, so shall I say thank you to Serena, and if you can stay for a while, you can. We'll be happy to have you still here, but when you have to leave, you have to leave, and we'll report back to you how it all ended. But thank you so far for the presentation, and let's move on in our agenda to the next speakers. All right, so the next speaker will be from the Ministry of Economy of Latvia, the Deputy Director of the Housing Policy Department at the Ministry, Karina Truhanova, and she'll elaborate a bit on the developments which are already ongoing regarding the decision-making process about energy efficiency measures. We know that from the previous experience that decision-making was not very effective. So the process of decision-making in multi-apartment buildings was not extremely effective. Actually, it used to be one of the a significant barrier in the process of improving energy efficiency in multi-apartment buildings. And For a number of years, there were initiatives how to dismantle this barrier or overcome this barrier, and the Ministry of Economy has prepared amendments to the regulatory framework on how homeowners associations and those who live actually in those buildings which require either deep renovation or not as deep a renovation, but still how the decisions can be made effectively, and how to avoid situations where the minority which wants to live in an improved environment, in a more energy efficient building, does not become a hostage of the majority which opposes it for whatever reasons. So Karin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Reinis, for a great introduction, and of course, many thanks to European Commission for detailed information on EPBD. Today, I will try to share our country's experience and great effort regarding the decision making, and I will put on now a short presentation, which I very hope will help you to understand those difficult things which I guess I will tell. My name is Karina Čuhanova, and I'm from Latvia. I'm working in the Ministry of Economics in the Housing Policy Department. I will speak about the very important phase before the renovation works can even be started, and it's the decision making of owners in multi-apartment building. And my presentation will consist of 3 parts. Firstly, I will briefly introduce you into the topic of the decision making, and secondly, I will tell about the decision making optimization in Latvia, and thirdly, I will introduce you with the concept of minority protection vote. Well, in Latvia, as in other countries, renovation in multi-apartment buildings cannot be carried out without the appropriate decision of the house owners. And taking this into account, during the last 2 years, we have made several crucial amendments in the regulation to make the decision-making process more convenient and faster. So first of all, in Latvia, as in many other legal systems where multi-apartment buildings and so many owners at the same time are involved, owners must collect a certain number of votes for the decision to be made. Previously in Latvia, the law was not clear, and regarding renovation, owners collected at least 2/3 of all owner votes to start the renovation. But now it is clear that only 15 + 1 vote is needed to make the decision. Moreover, in case the multi-apartment building constitutes joint ownership, which means that none of the owner owns exact flat, but only supposed parts of the buildings. And so for the decision to be made, 100% of owners must say, yes, we want the renovation to be started. So now with these amendments, the rule of 15 + 1 is extended also to the buildings which are joint ownership as well. Moreover, in Latvia, it is common that on one land are located physically separated, but legally constituting one whole unit buildings. And for these cases, it is prescribed that each physically separated building can make the decisions only regarding the relevant building, and only those owners who are located in these buildings can share the costs of the construction works, for example. This rule applies only to those buildings that are separated in flat units and does not constitute the joint ownership. In addition, for the effective procedure delivering, now for house owners, it is possible to make decisions by electronic tool through building information system. Often owners are abroad or cannot attend the owners meeting physically because of any other reasons. And it can also be a pandemic situation in the country. So now it is possible to deliver decisions via electronic tool. And the very last thing which I will speak on is this concept of a minority protection vote. We are currently now working on this concept and on the amendments in law. And this concept prescribes that, first of all, if the regulation sets some requirements regarding the energy efficiency of building, for example, that at some date it must reach a class B or another class, and the majority of multi-apartment building owners vote dismissively, then even one owner can protect his rights to the energy efficiency and can request other owners to comply with the law. And this request, of course, can be spoken rightly to the other owners, but this right also is possible to bring into the court. The second thing of this minority protection vote, in case the general meeting was organized and this meeting was not attended by the necessary number of owners, then in a month can be organized the meeting for the same question repeatedly. And so the decision is made by the majority of votes of those owners who attended this meeting. However, in case of surveys, if there are not given the necessary number of answers, it can also be answer no, so rejecting the decision. Then in a month can be organized repeated survey, and so the decision is made by the majority of votes of those owners who gave their positive answers in the second meeting. To sum up, this minority protection vote concept also exists in other countries. For example, in Austria and Estonia, and its main idea is to protect the minority of the majorities in action in those cases when it is more than certain that the decision must be made by owners. So we were inspired from the regulation of these mentioned countries, and now we currently trying to introduce this concept also in our decision making. And actually it is a brief information from me, and I will be happy to answer to your questions.
Thank you, Karina, for the presentation. I don't see currently questions in the chat, but maybe somebody wants to ask directly. All right, I have actually a quick question. What is the expected timeline for these amendments to enter into force? When can we expect that this will become true?
Well, as these are amendments in law, it takes a little bit longer procedure in Saeima, but we will do our best to bring these amendments, I guess, after I don't know, after half a year or even faster or maybe later. But we cannot predict the exact date. But we are doing our best, and we really hope that in the during the next year, these amendments will be approved by Saeima.
All right. All right. So I believe that house owners associations are looking towards these amendments entering into force eagerly. And I believe that there have been many instances, and I've experienced several examples. I've heard about several examples directly from homeowners associations who have actually explained that this has been one of the biggest barriers in decision making, and especially this aspect of minority protection is extremely important to them, because people cannot make a decision about home renovation for 5-6 years, although the building apparently and visually and from the engineering and structural point of view needs renovation works to be done, and the decision simply cannot be made because of these constraints of in decision-making process. So indeed, I think this will be a huge relief to those who are willing to live in better conditions, in better environment, in higher comfort circumstances, with reduced energy consumption, and because people still believe that that investment today does not pay off in the future. So there is unfortunately this barrier, which is called present bias, or the bias towards investing today in favor of gaining something tomorrow. So this is still a huge barrier, and probably we need also more information and education on overcoming these things. Okay, there is a hand raised from Ilze Kukute, who represents the Latvian Finance Association. Ilze, go ahead with your question. Ilze, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I want to turn on the video, possibly to, yeah, okay. Just one comment about the amendments. I think what is important that we also look for and discuss some risks regarding this minority voting, and possibly concerning the impact on financing. And that would be very good before the amendments go to the parliament. And I completely understand what Reinis made a comment at the moment, but I think we also should discuss this impact on financing. And I think what is important also that we don't raise with these amendments some kind of, let's say, disagreements between apartment owners, and also, let's say, introduce some new burden probably when we come to the renovation process and the financing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ilze, for this quick comment. But I forgot my own promise to collect the questions for the later session of questions and answers. So I'll thank Karina for the moment being, and let's proceed with the next presentation, and save our questions for a bit later. So the next presenter will be Andrzej Rejkiewicz. He represents the National Energy Conservation Agency of Poland. We had a very good introductory conversation yesterday in preparation of this meeting, and I hope that Andrzej can repeat some of the important points he shared with me already. I think Poland has very good experience, slightly different experience from Latvia in terms of financing and co-financing energy efficiency projects, and also in terms of involvement of private financial resources in the process, and also the cooperation between different stakeholders. It looks like Poland has been more successful than Latvia. Andrzej, the floor is yours. Please tell us what we can learn from you and what we should avoid in terms of possible mistakes. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I hope my presentation is now seen on your screens.
Yes, we can see it and hear you very well.
Fine. The story in Poland is that we started the renovation wave of multifamily buildings 24 years ago, in the year 1998, with introduction of the special support scheme for thermodynamization of buildings. And this scheme was purely domestic. 1998, Poland was a candidate for European Union, but we had very good relations with the Danish government and experts from Denmark. And Polish experts decided to design a support scheme to prepare all necessary procedures and propose to the Polish government to introduce this. And finally, the Parliament has decided in 1998 about implementation of this scheme. It was aimed primarily to help households in the reduction of heating costs after marketization of the energy prices. And the goal of this was to improve the technical standard of, let's say, between 50 and 100,000 buildings, which was a quarter of all multifamily buildings constructed before 1985. And the additional goals were, in fact, like today's goals: reduction of energy intensity, increase of energy security, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and the creation of several dozen of workplaces. This scheme works with the use of two elements. The first one is the grant from the Thermal Refurbishment Fund, which is a public fund located in the National Bank of Development. But this grant is mandatory connected with the loan. So as you see in this diagram, there is a St. Nicolaus state budget, which is granting help aid for owners of buildings, and this is passed to the commercial banks, and the banks are evaluating the creditworthiness of clients and are also doing verification of energy audits prepared by independent experts. The precondition for the use of the grant is that the minimum energy savings achieved through the measures implemented is 25%, which should be confirmed by the energy audit. And the subsidy was in initial phase 25% of the loan. It changed. Today, it's 16% of the total cost. And eligible for use of these grants are multifamily buildings of homeowners associations, housing cooperatives, also municipalities as owners of public buildings and social buildings, and also owners of local district heating systems with capacity of 11 to 6 megawatt. After 10 years of operation of the fund, there was a revision of assumptions after the deep analysis of the market and impact of the scheme on the stakeholders. And its significant change was that we added the separate grant for renovation purposes of multifamily buildings only, which met demand on such support by owners of buildings older than constructed in 1961, with technical condition, but also which could be partly under supervision of historical inspection. And there were also goals of this new grant. And we have also next, let's say, adjustment of this scheme to the macroeconomic situation, and also in line with the implementation of European directives. So integrated the grant for installation of photovoltaics on roofs of multi-family buildings, which gives additional 5% grant to the 16%, well, we started also adjustment of the scheme to very new developments which appear in Europe. But until 2021, our funds served over 40,000 of multi-family buildings, most of them owned by homeowners associations, and this is the coverage level of 15% of multi-family buildings constructed before 1985 in all country. And we can observe, which was confirmed also by the research of Buildings Performance Institute in Europe, that this practice has been, let's say, to some extent copied by many other homeowners associations, which were able to finance modernization measures without loan and without grant. And so over 50% of all multi-family buildings undergone any thermal modernization. But in some cities, especially in Warsaw, over 75% of multi-family buildings, homeowners associations, after this renovation, and most of them used this scheme. As you see the curve on this diagram, it's rather obvious that there was a peak of demand in the year, let's say, 2010, 11, 12, where the funds received almost 3,500 applications each year, and now we observe the dropping down the interest. But this is the question that we have analyzed, and we have some lessons learned. This downward trend since 2014 is conditioned by the gradual depletion of the market potential in large towns. The grant is connected with the loan, which means that the beneficiary needs to have a sufficient creditworthiness, and it's easier for homeowners association to have it in the larger cities than in smaller cities. Secondly, starting 2018, the regional governments, which are managing regional operation funds from European Union, decided to create similar instruments to this centrally driven instrument, and they, let's say, cover a few hundred yearly homeowners associations from the central scheme, which I'm describing as a cannibalization process. But from another side, these new schemes which were created on the regional level are quite interesting for better designing of the central scheme. And two important lessons learned also from the working scheme is that there is a quite small percentage of applications for bonuses which are rejected in the case of verification. It means that there is good understanding of the fund's operation by applicants, and that there is a high quality of energy audits. In the meantime, we trained in Poland over 3,000 engineers for this function of energy auditors, and this training is also continuing each year by our center. And the last important lesson learned is that since 2007, the number of accepted applications is convergent with the number of bonuses granted. So the process of thermomodernization of the building is in fact standardized and can be initiated at the beginning of the year and can be finished in material terms in the same year. So this is very good argument that the market, the labor market, the market of suppliers of goods and services for this sector approved this scheme as a kind of standard renovation work or standard procedure. And this is, I think, very good for the market, because it assures, in fact, yearly around 2,500 renovations, which involved the construction market sector, which is of course looking for orders. Now, exactly this month, we are finishing approval of the next change of the scheme, especially towards meeting of needs of our multifamily and social buildings. The thermomodernization bonus will be increased to 26% of total investment cost. We introduced a special incentive for achieving the nearly zero energy building standard after renovation. This is additional 10% of total investment cost. So if you see, this could be in total 36% plus 5% for photovoltaics, 41% the maximum grant for thermomodernization measures, which is connected with the loan. Concerning the renovation bonus, for this older buildings, it will be increased to 25% of total investment cost. And we have introduced also the separate grant for PV installation. This is 50% of total investment cost. It is independent on thermomodernization or renovation of buildings. This is applicable mostly by buildings constructed during the last, let's say, 10-15 years, which are not equipped with PV installation. And municipalities are currently eligible to apply for grants for thermal modernization of municipally-owned social houses up to 90% of total investment cost. In general, we also increased the minimum level of energy savings which are required to apply for these bonuses. This is 30% according to the European Commission recommendations. And a few words about support instruments for public buildings. The Thermomodernization Fund served 2,000 municipality buildings for thermal renovation with use of grants connected with the loans. So municipalities were keen to take loans with this grant. But during last perspective and former, the first one, the EU funds have been used in form of grants only for thermodernization of governmental public buildings under the central program, operational program infrastructure and environment. Municipally owned public buildings used funds from regional operational programs, each of 16 regions in Poland. And we started now the support of ESCO model to implement measures in multifamily buildings and in public buildings. This is the pilot phase, which is financed from the modernization part of European Union. And now we are, let's say, assessing the first phase of this program, and there are good perspectives to develop this and adjust better to the market needs. And the last one source for grants for municipal buildings, thermomodernization. Of course, these were the EEA and Norway grants. And perhaps last remarks concerning the dimensioning of projects. Now the cost of the modernization in multi-family building. This is rather deep modernization, which includes full thermal insulation of walls and installation of heat pumps as replacement of the coal-fired boilers. This is 250 euros per square meter. In public buildings, this cost is 2 times higher because there are, in fact, standard proposed solutions to heat recovery and recuperation. And this project for multi-family buildings are in fact quite expensive and are enough attractive for banks. Generally, the homeowners associations in Poland are treated by banks as the best clients. I do not hear about any bankruptcy of the homeowner association. Therefore, 12 banks are operating together with the modernization fund and are serving those entities, and they are really very happy with loans for 15, 20, even 25 years, and which are paid mostly very punctual. Concerning the return of investment, there is still long SPBT, simple payback time, is over 20 years, and it is not attractive for SPs. So the new scheme that we are working on should reduce the SPBT to 10 years. So the amount of grant to the project, in fact, which this grant could be passed either to ESCO or to the municipality, should be in such extent that the payback period will be reduced to 10 years. And in such situations, some banks now are ready to finance such projects and buy liabilities from the ESCOs in order to give them flow to start next projects. And it's important also that we use in Poland quite frequently the EU ELENA funds for preparation of energy efficient and sustainable projects. 4 banks are doing this, and they are helping homeowners associations, housing cooperatives, and now also municipalities with covering the cost of preparation, even providing the experts, the certified experts, which is a real help for beneficiaries. So they can speed up the preparation process of development process of projects, and then so that they can earlier achieve savings and have economy from them. And the last topic we are intensively promoting now, especially within our Round Baltic project, which is related to roundtables on energy efficiency financing on the central level and in region. These are one-stop shops. So we are promoting all 3 models. It means passive, active, and implementing model for beneficiaries, and there are plenty new interest raised from private consulting companies or even from private financing institutions to be such developer for owners of buildings. We are almost sure that the amount of money which will be available in the coming 5 or 10 years to support energy efficiency measures will be very, very high, and we have still much to do in opening the channels between the financing sources and the beneficiaries. They need to be very well informed. I'm talking, we need to knock each entrance door of multi-family building of the municipality, and also for single family homeowners, in order to give them opportunity from one side to reduce their cost and be in compliance with our goals concerning climate change mitigation, but from another side, we need to find new ways to channel the financing from European Union and from domestic funds to the final beneficiaries. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Andrzej. I think it was a very good presentation. I believe that there will be comments and questions upcoming, and since we are a few minutes behind the schedule, I'd now like to move forward to the next presentation with Klikmose-Holm. I hope I pronounced it at least closely to how it originally sounds, and represents State of Green, which is the Danish agency for well, basically for energy efficiency and sustainable energy. So it's been pleasure working with some of your colleagues previously, and I'm happy to have you here also today. And I believe that you will enlighten us on some interesting aspects of building renovation in terms of energy efficiency in Denmark. The Danish approach is always interesting, not only in wind energy, but also in energy efficiency. So Ingrid, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rainis, and thank you for letting me speak today. I will now try to share my screen with you. Okay. So my name is Klikmose-Holm, and I work for State of Green. I have 10 minutes, so I'll try to do it short. I will give a short introduction to State of Green. We're quite a partnership, so I'm not sure it exists many places. I was asked to give a short presentation about our white paper on energy renovation of buildings in Denmark, so I'll try to do that. And more specifically, to take a look at the Danish holistic approach to energy renovation. So, State of Green, we are a public-private partnership, not for profit. We were founded back in 2008 as a prelude to the COP15, which were held here in Copenhagen back then. Our main goal is to promote Danish green solutions and Danish green companies. It's very important for me to say that we are not political and we are not lobbying. What we're doing is more communication work and branding work, actually. So I'm not as much an expert as I would like to be, and as Rainis presented me as. We are public and private. You can see we are owned by 4 Danish ministries and 3 major business organizations. These are our owners and our founders. Then we have some public sponsors, some corporate sponsors, and you will probably know some of these companies. They are very important within the field of energy efficiency. Then we have His Royal Highness, Crown Prince of Frederik. He is our patron, helping us to promote the Danish efficiency sector. So this white paper on energy renovation of buildings, I don't know if you can see it here. We actually wrote it before the IEA conference, which were held here in Denmark, in the south of Denmark, in Sønderborg, in June this year. And some of you might have been there. Fatih Birol actually named Sønderborg the world's capital of energy efficiency after this conference. So it's quite important statement for Sønderborg. I will not have the time, since I do only have 10 minutes, to deep dive into all the areas of this white paper. I can deeply recommend you to go in on our website and download it. It's for free. You can also find some of the highlights from there on our website if you follow this link. I have chose to pick out some of the key takeaways that I will look at on some of the drivers for the Danish energy renovation of buildings. So First of all, we have the EPC energy labeling system as one of the key drivers for renovation of buildings in Denmark. I don't know if you can see all of it out here. It's just me who has this.
We can see the slide. It looks perfect.
You can see the side as well?
Yes.
The right side? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, because in Denmark, we have used this energy labeling system since 2006. And about half of the building stock in Denmark has this EPC labeling. In 2029, it was kind of redesigned to make it easier for house owners to understand, and at the same time they made a new funding scheme, making it obligation to have an EPC label if you wanted to have subsidies for the energy renovation. This has actually resulted in in these EPCs. In just 1 year, we have increased the number of EPCs from approximately 68,000 back in 2020 to 81,000 in 2021. And all the responsibilities for this EPC system lies at the Danish Energy Agency. It's collecting data, everything, and they're actually collected into a public database where you can go in and actually on a very local level see your house. For instance, if I want to see what I can do to make some energy savings, to lower my bill, to lower my CO2 emission, I can go in on my specific house, and then there will be some advice on what I can do. And it will be, the certificate will actually highlight the most potential field measures, both to lower the energy bill and to lower CO2 emissions. So it's quite easy for housekeepers to actually go in and find out what they can do. So, and this is actually on the sparenergi.dk. It's very easy. And what is actually interesting about this EPC system is that the DEA has conducted a study in relationship to the prices and the EPC labeling. And they found that if a building, for instance, a 100 square meter house in Denmark goes from C to B, from D to C, then the buyers will actually be willing to pay 6,000 euro more for the same house. So that's kind of interesting, and that is pushing the energy renovation as well. So moving on to the DGNB system, which is a systemized approach to sustainability. And this is also a pillar in the Danish transition to a greener and more holistic approach to the built environment, since it goes for the triple bottom line. I mean, it's not only focusing on environment or on economy, but it's on the social aspects, well-being, etc. It actually focuses on the 3 pillars, and it has to be a harmony between those 3. It's not one of them weighing more than the other. It has 2 primary functions here. Firstly, of course, it serves as a benchmark for sustainability. And then it's also a tool for organizing the whole building process. And that is quite interesting. And so in contrast to other sustainability certification, it's, as I mentioned, a very holistic view that characterizes this DGNB. So in Denmark, what has been very interesting is that it has been market forces that has been driving this transformation. because there has been this very strong support from the industry, and that has been a crucial part of the success here in Denmark. And it makes so that this framework, it has been, instead of being something causing troubles in the building sector, it has actually been more as an asset and a competitive advantage for the building sector now. So that is quite interesting, I believe. Then I have brought a small case about Sønderborg. Those of you who were in the city this summer probably already know it, but it's actually how in Denmark we have this focus on trying to look at both the supply and the demand side. So it's this one-stop shop approach to energy renovation. And this concrete case, it started, the project, it started back in 2010. And it was only focused in Sønderborg. And Sønderborg has, I believe it's 18,600 occupied homes. And all these homes had a very large carbon footprint, because most of them, they were actually built before the oil crisis back in the 70s, and most of them were supplied by oil and gas burners, so very large carbon footprint from them. But then this project actually gathered local craftsmen, banks, realtors, energy consultants, and district heating companies. And then they launched several different initiatives, which were targeted both on the demand side and on the supply side, meaning that the craftsmen were educated in energy consultancy, and then you guided the homeowners to get an understanding of what this potential energy renovation projects could mean for them. And then in collaboration with the banks and financial institutes, there was this introduction to accessible loans to finance these energy saving efforts. And then there was a strong focus on communication all the way, all down the way. 1,600 house owners participated in this project and received guidance, and 60% out of these 1,600 actually chose to make an investment of an average 20,000 euro in energy efficient renovation. And this, of course, means that they saved a lot of money. And now Sønderborg is a lot cleaner and greener place to live. So that's quite of an interesting case. And in Denmark and also internationally, many cities are trying to copy this model to try to do the same, because it was such a success. Yeah. Then. At the end, well, just focus on how important it is to have a holistic view of the energy renovation, because as in most areas, of course, in the green transition, then it's very important to take this holistic approach to also financing the energy renovation. If you offer this one-stop shop solution that includes both advisory, professional projects, and funding management, and also following up meetings and everything, then it can be more well-tailored and also more accessible in the long run. So, and we all know that energy efficiency is not only important in terms of economy and in terms of environment, but it's also a matter of life quality and indoor climate. And this is a very important issue here in Denmark. We also try to see if all the related effects that comes from investing in energy renovation. I have taken a European case here. If you renovate office buildings across Europe, we're 80 million people across Europe working in offices, and if we invest in creating this healthier and more comfortable work environment, then we can actually increase the employer productivity by 12%, and that will help us gain a lot of money, of course. But it's not only good in terms of money and productivity, etc. It's also when it comes to hospitals, you can shorten the time in average in the whole hospitals by 11%, and that will also give large turnover by around $42 billion. And for school, if you choose to renovate them, it can affect the pupils so that they will learn the same in a shorter amount of time. 2 weeks per year, actually, you can gain for the pupils. So holistic approach, extremely important, had to be thought in all the way. It makes it also nicer to go with the energy efficiency, because sometimes it can be difficult, in my experience, to sell energy efficiency as something nice and sexy. It's more something necessary. But if you see the side effects, it's very, very important on so many levels. So, yes. Thank you very much. I guess my 10 minutes is up, but if you have any questions, please ask them. And if we do not have time for questions, please write me an email. I will be happy to answer by email.
Thank you, Gret. I think there was plenty of things for thought, plenty of food for thought, and we'll definitely have questions. We'll have an hour for questions and answers. So at this point, since we have one last speaker, last but not least, we'll hear the presentation from Ilze Kukute from Finance Association Latvia about the financial aspects of of financing or co-financing energy efficiency measures. Ilze is an experienced, seasoned expert in these things, and it's very valuable to also hear not only her personal, but also the perspective of whole of the Finance Association Latvia. So this is a private money which can be, which has the potential to significantly improve the overall financing for energy efficiency measures. And Ilze, the floor is yours, and it will be followed by questions and answers session.
Yes, thank you very much. I have also support in regards to slides. Thank you for this, and thank you for all the presentations we heard before. Yes, my presentation will be about some guidance and recommendations from the Finance Association in Latvia, and also about sustainable financing framework. What would be kind of key messages we would like to share with you? Next slide, please. We go for yes, thank you very much. Yes, I really appreciate what we heard already, and from Serena and also other speakers. And first, our recommendation would be to follow actually the EU Renovation Wave strategy and the principles included in this strategy. And in terms of our case, Latvian case, I think that the important is to really establish kind of dialogue platform, meaning involving all the stakeholders, and to discuss how this EU renovation strategy will be addressed in Latvia. I think it is important what I pointed here. We speak about energy performance as a priority in the renovation process, and also the deep retrofit, and that creates also some new challenges for us. And from sustainable finance framework, it is important to talk also about the building energy performance monitoring system really to be introduced. And I'm happy to hear that the Danish experience where each of the house owner has public accessibility of the data on house level and can really also see this energy performance and what could be improved and could be done and how much savings the person or house owner could reach. So I think that's the way also in Latvia we should go forward. And also I think there are a lot of possibilities from this dialogue we could get from the new Bauhaus principles, which exactly is talking about also new building materials, sustainable building materials. This is also, and also in the renovation process, not speaking only about the newly built buildings. Yeah, so I think that there is also potential what we can have from this new Bauhaus principles and how these will be applied in our apartment buildings or public buildings renovation process. And of course, this integrated approach, which is also need to be discussed between the stakeholders, how government is intervening with municipalities or supporting the municipalities, how we are sharing the experience between the municipalities, what they do now, what is the best experience, what really scale up the volumes of the projects. And so I think that's very, very important. And speaking about the deep retrofit and the amendments in this building energy performance directive, so the step-by-step renovation, so how it really will be done. I think there's a lot of very interesting issues raised up, and we as the financiers will be really part of this discussion as with also input from our side. We can go on with next one. And if we do this, so how this integrated approach then will look like. So, and I really appreciate this also the picture which show this interrelation, also speaking about the funding. And we really heard today this experience how the European Union and national support schemes could intervene and support the house owners in the renovation process, and also how the Bauhaus principles, sustainable building materials and maybe some prefabricated already renovation building materials could support an energy saving and fasten the renovation process. Next slide, please. Yes, what is the experience from the financier side, what we see today in Latvia, and also one click more to full slide if we can. Average renovation process at the moment in Latvia, from the renovation idea to the finalized renovated house, multi-apartment house, takes 3 to 4 years. And I think that's really a huge time. And we should really also, in this stakeholder dialogue platform, to discuss how we really ease the way, how we actually take away all the burdens, what we see in this renovation process. I would like to point out that, as you see, the financing part where actually we come in, it's actually the last 10% of the whole process. It usually takes about 10 to 12 months. So, but how we can really ease this process from the idea to the financing period. And here I come to some points we would really like to discuss with all stakeholders, which is the capacity of the project management, which is the capacity also of building companies, and this like long-term planning and also long-term thinking that this process of renovation is really going up to sustainable understanding way of thinking. So, and this is this means we need to involve also the building associations and in this stakeholder platform. Speaking about the apartment owners, so they have to decide to go on for renovation. I think they are lacking at the moment really focused information on the energy consumption existing, housing energy performance certificates, what can be improved by doing what steps, and what are the support, this integrated approach of the support, the one-stop shop as we hear today, where we could get this information, how that process of communication is leaded, I mean for one house housing apartment owners, yeah. I think that's all of the importance, what scales up actually the project volume and also fastens the process. And that's why we are kind of reluctant, I would like to say, on the amendments we heard today from our ministry on these numbers of voting, because my question would be who will do the other pieces of the process, who will lead the process, who will support the apartment owners, who will actually explain and lead the communication, prepare the documents. That also is, let's say, part of the successful way to renovate the house. Let's go on to the next slide. What is our proposal? I think to ease, we really have to focus on housing apartment owners. And I think here we have to focus the communication information. What we can do in Latvia about the energy passports. So energy, these labels, classes, now we hear there will be amendments in energy performance directive. So we have to communicate what will be the future in 1 year, in 2 years, how we introduce the energy passports for each of the multi-apartment house, also for public building. What does it mean for the people? The next one is the energy performance certificates, the change of the formats, digitally available, publicly accessible data, which is important for us as the financiers, because once renovating each of the house, we have to prove how much of the savings we reach and what the energy performance will be after the renovation. And that's also introduced now in the support schemes what we have in Latvia. But we have to explain it in very easy and understandable way to housing owners and apartment owners. And I think another part is important. We have to start the discussion about the motivation tools, which could come from tax system. EU renovation wave is also saying that national governments have to speak out and think out about some tax system motivation tools, which we actually have as a possibility. For example, the real estate tax and And maybe there is some discussion we can also raise up about the personal income tax. So, what would be the best motivation for the house owners, apartment owners, and what could contribute to deep renovation? I think this deep renovation is very costly for the people. What we see at the moment, and in this year specifically, we saw a lot of projects where the housing apartment owners, they decided not to go for renovation due to high building costs, and that means we need some grant elements also in deep retrofit, and we should discuss where these grant elements could come from. Not maybe from all municipalities' budgets, but I think the real estate tax, probably some percentage of it could be used for some grant elements provided to Altum, for example, and this could be accessible also for us as the banks for deep retrofit complex projects. Next slide. To be very also short and to put all together, so to sum up, I think what we heard today, that we will work on some updates on our national strategies for long-term renovations. There will be amendments in EU legislation which will be adopted in Latvia, and that's very good, I think, opportunity for all of us as stakeholders to really come together and to discuss how we will implement and amend our national strategy, and we have to work together on this document. One remark, I think national support schemes in Latvia, we have to work really earlier, and at the moment, if I remember, it is supposed by our national long-term renovation strategy that only in 2027 we will start to work on this new national support. I think that's really too late, and we have to start it already now and look at the great experience what we have in different other EU member states and look for the best option and possibility for Latvia. I think we should really focus the information and communication, and also to scale up the communication and devote the resources for targeted, focused communication to apartment owners, also because they need the time to understand what will be changed, what will be the future. They need the time for dialogue also in between each other, so they have to they need time to think, and then they will decide faster as we wish to. And capacity building for apartment owners, I think it is very, very important. So raising awareness, strengthening the project management, that really is also examples what we know have worked very well in Estonia. And renovation process, simple support schemes, simple process. It should be simplified also to help the apartment owners and more closer to the financing process as we do it in the market and as we finance. New Bauhaus principles, that's opportunity and that's possibility where we see a lot of examples, for example, in other countries on prefabricate materials which fasten the renovation process, especially for paneling houses. I think that's also a good opportunity for Latvia to talk about all the Bauhaus principles, how they will be introduced and work in Latvia. So I will stop here and thank you very much for this event and all other presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilse. As always, very much to the point. I think we have had now 5 presentations, which basically provide us with a nice collection of different aspects that need to be taken into consideration when thinking about how we can improve the tempo, if you wish, of implementing energy efficiency measures. We have roughly an hour ahead of us for questions and answers and also comments. So please don't be shy. Go ahead. We'll still have experts at hand. I have several questions already prepared by myself, but I would like to ask first and foremost whether experts among themselves have something to comment and to reflect on what others have said. I don't know. This is, I'm improvising now. This is a workshop. We are now brainstorming. This is not a conference. So you're welcome to interact between each other. And if I see comments popping up either in the chat or a hand raised, so I'll react to that. Anyone? I can go ahead then with a few introductory attempts to kick off the. I see Andrzej. I'll let you speak in a second. Okay. So some things that I noticed already, which definitely deserve much more attention than so far, is trying to accelerate the availability of information. That is the digitalization aspect of all of these processes, not only of the energy efficiency implementation process, but also of the current state of affairs. So this is one major problem indeed, because there is no universal system of collecting energy performance data of buildings currently available, and it is a huge problem for not only for potential financing institutions or financiers of projects, but also for the homeowners themselves. The only way, in most of the cases, the only way how to understand how much investment is required and what can the gains be from investment in energy efficiency is to look at the figures in your monthly payment bill for energy and try to use Excel for calculations. Or you can also hire, of course, the energy auditor who will do this for you, and it is actually absolutely necessary, prerequisite for any energy efficiency investment project. So this has to be done, but it would make it much more easy, much easier, and the process would be swifter if we would have digitalized data, which is available online for everybody. It would also open up avenues for comparing the energy performance between different sort of buildings or similar buildings in different towns, vicinities, areas, and would allow to compare also those buildings which have already carried out renovation and those which have not, and especially this could especially help convince investing in energy efficiency measures those inhabitants of those multi-apartment buildings which are so-called typical or standard projects. We used to have this sort of approach in the Soviet times where there were so-called project number 255 or 619, etc., etc. I'm improvising now. So this would also help understand what can actually be gained just from looking at the example of a similar house being renovated. Okay, that's probably my initial reaction. Andrzej, go ahead.
Yes, well, I would like to reply on the information about the length of the process of modernization that ISA thought is 3 up to 4 years, and in Poland this is currently up to 1 year. Well, this is not surprising for me. At the beginning of the functioning of the scheme in Poland, the period of the development and implementation of the projects was also very long. Now it's up to 1 year. There are many examples that even during 9 months, I'm calling pregnancy period, it's possible to take decision by the homeowner association, obtain the loan from the bank and subsidy and implement the measures. Condition is that the process should start late autumn or very beginning of the year. Why is it short now? Because this financing scheme that we introduced in Poland is so attractive, and the money dedicated by the government for this scheme at the very beginning was not used fully. And this was only an instrument to support the homeowners associations to do renovation of buildings with the energy effect. So each of the parties involved in the process started to look how to speed up own procedures. And secondly, there were two kinds of intermediaries between the financing sources and the beneficiary. The first one, these are energy auditors. The energy audit is mandatory document necessary for preparation of the initial decision of the bank in parallel to assessment of creditworthiness of the client. And the second group are facility managers, buildings managers. And we, as energy auditors, started to, let's say, educate facility managers, buildings managers, how to prepare from technical point of view the process. It means how to order the energy audit, and they looked how to speed up the decision-making process on the side of the homeowner association. And in Warsaw, I remember this time before 24 years, I took part in over 100 meetings of homeowners associations in the city of Warsaw, and educated both the administrators and the members of the boards of homeowner associations about the profits coming from the thermal renovation of buildings. After a few projects which have been implemented as a good practice, we have done an awareness campaign in cooperation with the municipality, and the process started to be more, let's say, efficient and faster. So everybody needs to look in own procedures how to speed up decision-making process. And it is not a problem to find now the executor of works. It means the construction company. There are many specialized companies in thermal insulation or the installation of internal heating systems, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. A very valuable comment. In fact, may I just quickly reflect on what you just said, Andrzej? You said it was long at the beginning. Now it's very short. Would you say that? Would you say that the scale of a project would matter when it comes to the length of implementation of a project? Is there any trend between for smaller and bigger projects? Does one take more time or not?
No, this is the question how we sell this to the members of the homeowners association. We need to sell this on such a way that, okay, they need to increase a little bit their contribution to the renovation fund of the building, which is collected from members of the association each month, but they will save money in the second pocket, which is used to cover the energy bills, the heat bills. And if you are able to show it on transparent way and convince people with such calculation, the scale of the project has no impact on decision making. It can be applied for small projects and for projects. The homeowner association is the same person in small building and the big building.
Okay,
Clever
great.
person which needs to be convinced with the economic result.
Okay, great. Ilze, you have your hand raised.
I would like to ask Andrzej also about experience on how do you select the building companies and what is your experience with working with building companies? Thank you.
Yes, at the very beginning, it was not easy to find companies specialized in doing the thermal insulation, especially. But there was a very active, or started to be very active, the sector of suppliers of goods and services, companies which are providing the insulation materials. So they started to cooperate with energy auditors and with buildings managers, showing their products and doing additional training for construction companies which have not been experienced in such things. And slowly this kind of renovation work started to be a standardized one. So we know that there is a necessary small group of well-skilled workers on the construction side. There is very good support from suppliers of these goods with knowledge and also with materials, with assistance, etc., even on the site work. So it was good input from the private sector on the transparent way, because the homeowner association if it decides to use the grant, it is not mandatory for them to do the public procurement, but they need to select the company based on the competitive way. So looking for the best relation between the price and quality. And this system is self-managing, because if the homeowner association is taking the loan first, is looking to get the offers as low as it's possible, because the loan should be paid and the interest should be repaid. And the grant is calculated to the total investment cost, yes. And so this is it developed simply over time.
I have Ilze, you wanted to add something?
I wanted to also ask, how about this prefabricated building materials? Do you use in Poland those, and do you have enough, let's say, for renovation? If you have this prefabricated materials introduced, and how it is helping this in renovation process and timing?
Well, you are talking about prefabricated schemes for insulation of walls.
Yes, like for paneling, renovation panels. I mean, prefabricated renovation panels. As far as we have looked, this is, I think, in Netherlands and also UK, in different countries, these prefabricated panels are used in the renovation process.
No, it is not developed in Poland. We are using the standard methods of putting the plates of mineral wool or styrofoam on the existing wall. Of course, if there is a panel building, there is also check of technical standard of these panels which are in buildings, and if it's necessary to improve the connections, there is a special also support scheme to improve connections within the old panels. But for renovations, well, there are some ideas. I know this trend in Europe. I know also a good example from Estonia that such panels have been used for thermal insulation of one building. This technology is also used, for example, in Austria, and this is done from wooden elements with mineral wool, including also photovoltaics as an element of the external layer of such panel. It's, in my opinion, it's a very good technical solution, but not each country could be implemented immediately.
Great comments. Actually, you want to refer quickly to about the certificate system in Denmark that you referred to and mentioned. Certificate, I think you said that the presence of a certificate which showed that the building is energy efficient has increased the willingness of potential apartment buyers to pay more, like was it €6,000 more on average per apartment. This requirement, is it mandatory? That is, I mean, do you have to have? Does a building has to have this certificate? And where is it laid down? Is it primary legislation or secondary legislation? And how much has it actually, in your opinion, facilitated more investment and more willingness to invest in energy efficiency? I hope my question reached.
Sorry, Kai Leonhard Petersen speaking.
Kai. Okay.
Yeah, Kui had to leave the meeting.
All right. Okay, Kai. Would you be
maybe
able
we can
to
give some overall answers. The EPC in Denmark is mandatory when you sell or buy the house. Otherwise, it's not mandatory, and there's a certain procedure behind it. That there's some primary legislation and some secondary legislation how to do the EPC. So there's a standardization, and there are lots of efforts going on to improve the EPC, including the digitalization to combine it with data from other databases, so that you can go to the computer and press a button, and then you can get every information about the house, including the EPC. And we are also looking into how we can improve the usage of the EPC. We have this in how to improve it in relation to the financial issues, to put more data into the to the EPC. And there's a lot of experience from a previous project called Extendo, and where we are now starting up a new project, Crossert, where we will look into how we can put more data around the EPC and combine it with data from various sources, including for using one-stop shops. One of the ideas is to combine it with this new requirement in the upcoming revision of the service directive, where there's this to build a building renovation plan, the building renovation passport, where you make a stepwise renovation plan for a building up to 2050 to make it deep retrofit or CO2 neutral. So we'll also look into how we can combine the EPC with this requirement. And this building renovation passport also includes a logbook where you continuously update the renovation process of the building and update the stepwise renovation plan within the building. And this could then again be linked to the municipal planning, to the strategic energy and climate plan in the municipalities, so that you can also use the EPC and this building renovation passport as a monitoring tool. towards.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, great comment. Thank you. I see that also Nils has, from our Danish partner, has written a comment that this revised building certificate of buildings in Denmark has been made in coordination with the financial sector to make it easier to understand from the financier's point of view what is necessary. So I think it's also an important aspect that we could we have to take into consideration. Right. Okay. Any questions from other panelists, or any further comments from other panelists, perhaps, or from anybody who has been listening? I actually have Edgars Augustīns. All right, Edgars, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reinis. Yes, my name is Edgars Augustīns. I do represent one of the ESCO companies in Latvia, which really focuses on multi-apartment building renovation, which is Renesco. I do have the question for Andrzejs. I saw in the one of the slides that actually Andrzejs said that ESCOs are not interested in long-term agreements. So basically those 20 years, you mentioned 10, 15. Also, you mentioned the investment costs, which are like 250 euros per square meter, most probably these days are a little bit higher, also here in Latvia. And that are two important things which links. So basically the investments in the building and the paying back the investments. And the question is actually on the resident side, whether they are able to accept increase of the monthly payment after renovation due to the increase of investments. And then it comes back and links to the term. So basically the 20 years or 15 years. So basically if the shorter term, they will have to pay more afterwards to pay back the investment costs. And maybe, Andrzej, you can elaborate and maybe argue back why and what are the reasons for shorter period, because from our side, actually, we would look even longer, like 20, 25 years. So because we are looking in the building sector, which will be in place, and it will have to be maintained. And so by guaranteeing these services as the real long process.
Well, I think that this ESCO offer is more applicable for municipalities than for multifamily buildings. However, of course, in home associations, if they are able to repay the loan over 20 or 25 years, they are also keen to repay this from savings to ESCOs. But ESCOs are not interested in cutting the contracts for longer than 10 years. And now we are working on this scheme, which will, from one side, give the subsidy to the total investment cost, which is assessed by ESCO, in such amount that the payback period will be up to 10 years. So large part of project will be paid from grant, not from savings, in fact. And secondly, we have the National Fund for Environment Protection and Water Management, which is now looking for forfeiting of liabilities from ESCOs. So to buy these liabilities from ESCOs quite quickly after, let's say, 1 or 2 years of operation, in order to give them floor to start next projects. Yes. Because involvement of one ESCO in many projects for even 10 years, it means that they can be blocked with financing, and the banks which are now keen to finance ESCO, for example, the French bank BNP Paribas, told that it's ready to finance ESCOs, but only for up to 10 years period, no longer. So this is the market situation. And I think that this offer will be, if it will happen this year, the municipalities will use this scheme, because the obligation coming from the PBD directive to move the buildings from the class G to E during coming, let's say, 4 years, needs money. And municipalities in Poland, and not also in Poland, are already on the wall concerning their debts. And the support from EU won't be significant in this matter. Therefore, having in mind that energy performance contract is not a kind of public debt in European Union and also in Poland, this way of implementing of energy efficiency measures in public buildings, municipalities, I hope will be a standard one. But we are working hardly also on preparation of one-stop shops for municipalities, that they really start to understand that there is no other way to do this, like it is done in many EU countries. The ESCO are doing the energy efficiency in public buildings in municipalities.
Yep, thank you. I think, yeah, you pointed out the reasons very clearly. That's actually, it's not the ESCOs who are providing the such shorter terms of services, but that's the availability of financing for those ESCOs. Just to comment that actually in Latvia we are a bit better situation, because the financiers see the benefits and they are willing to finance for those 20 years. But yeah, thank you, Andres. Yeah.
Thank you. I see a hand raised. Janek Twardowski, please present yourself shortly before asking or commenting. You're muted, I think, on your mic. We cannot hear you.
I hope it will work better. I changed the source of microphone. I've put my comments to the previous one on the chat. I think in Poland there's a special situation. We have a high interest rate, but the most important is that the building sector is based not on the fixed rates when modernization comes to true, but on the changeable, let's say, medium-term interest rate. And as a colleague Edgar said, it would be a big problem to the tenants just to meet the, how to say, monthly payments after modernization of buildings if they are based on these changeable rates, which are quite high now, and they are not related to the 10 or 15 years period like usually you should have when you are building new stock. And it's one of the Polish problems I would like to mention here. So the ESCO companies cannot give, let's say, fixed, how to say, payment. So it's the risk factors in Poland are much more higher than in other countries.
Oh, I see your point, Janek. Thanks. Edgar, do you want to interact quickly? No? Yes? Okay. Right. Yes, this is a valid point. I understand what you're saying. Of course, those taking part are encouraged also to browse through the chat, not only now but also probably afterwards or in the record of this workshop to reflect, to see what others have reflected on. There was another question to Andrzej about Elena. Could you please introduce Elena technical documentation support benefits? How could this program help for financial intermediary, that is banks, and how does it work in Poland? If you could, Andrzej, reflect on this briefly.
Yes, sure. I started to answer this. Well, the cost of energy audit is in Poland up to 1,000 euros because it is quite complicated document with calculations and also a part of kind of business plan. And the cost of technical documentation designs can reach even 10,000 euros, especially where buildings are under historical inspection. And this is initial cost of development of project, which is quite high, and this should be covered by homeowner association at the very beginning. But if the association apply to one of 4 banks providing currently the ELENA assistance for the subsidized loan, which I described, they can apply also for a reimbursement of 90% of the preparation cost. 90%. So this is approved very quickly because the bank is intermediary between the ELENA program and beneficiary, and in fact the bank decides about this reimbursement. So it is a process included in even creditworthiness assessment procedure. So has no impact on the development. But this reduction of the initial development cost make easier to the energy auditor and to the buildings manager to convince the homeowner association with the thermal refurbishment to speed up the decision-making process, to shorten the first period of decision-making, and it works very well. In my opinion, during the last 3 years, around 1,000 of homeowner associations have used this ELENA instrument, which is combined with the loan. So this is not fantasy.
Okay, thank you for the comment. So it does work, and there's pretty good scale of applying this possibility. All right, that's good. I also see that there is a comment from Kai on the Danish EPC system, which is being basically aligned to the revisions of the upcoming Energy Performance in Buildings Directive amendments. So yes, okay, that's good to know. All right, any other comments or questions from anybody? If not, then I have another question to throw in the air. I'm not sure what reflections I will receive, but one of the reasons, one of the problems behind this prolonged process of implementing energy efficiency project is that, especially now over the course of last year or two, the construction costs have risen immensely, and it means that if House Owners Association has invested time and resources in drawing up a business plan for renovation of the building, and finally they get to the point where they might be able to submit this project to the financing institutions. Suddenly they find themselves in a situation where the costs have doubled, have significantly increased, and they're not able anymore to proceed with the business plan as initially planned. And I'm not sure if there is any solution to this problem except for trying to avoid or take down as much as possible these so-called cyclical problems of availability of financing. And we all know that especially in the systems where financing energy efficiency measures heavily relies on the EU funds, then the cyclical nature of activity is actually not only a possibility to get EU funding or co-funding for the project, but it's also in itself, it becomes a problem because the construction sector also is aware of the cyclical nature of availability of financing, and it means that the construction sector simply knows that, well, we can lay down, we can live under the surface, so to say, operate under the surface for 3-4 years And then we know that there will be the next period of financing and support to energy efficiency measures. And this is where we earn our money. So it's not necessary for us to be perplexed about being ready to implement a big number of energy efficiency projects in a more linear way. It's more about how to handle these price hikes, which follow the hikes in the number of projects submitted for financing for energy efficiency. So that's one really big problem. On one hand, you have money. On the other hand, this money, well, part of that money simply goes, is lost due to, I don't know, artificial inflation or inflated prices of materials and services once the new financing period kicks in. Any comments on that? I know that Poland actually has most of its financing has had most of its financing coming from national sources, rather than relying too heavily on the EU funding. Does anybody from Latvia believe that it could, the balance of power, so to say, could switch slightly more away from from heavy reliance on EU funds and more towards local sources of financing? This was sort of a question.
Yes, I think, Reinis, I could support you in answering or maybe raising up some questions or discussion with other participants. That's why I think we have to start to think about this national support scheme in Latvia and to discuss. My idea is look at this real estate tax, for example, and actually the market, which is renovation market today. I think this year or last year, all the commercial banks participating in this EU support program. We financed about 107 or 110 renovation projects. And this year, I think it is more because this EU supported program is close to the end. But let's say the market at the moment in Latvia is about 130, 120 projects. If we look at the payouts for building works, so probably that will give us a clear number. I mean, what could be this, let's say, incentive for national support scheme each year, annual, which we would need for supporting some building payments, especially for deep retrofit, and we can discuss what are the most vulnerable groups. And if we look at this number in calculating from this 120 or 108 projects, then I came to about 25 to 30 million euros as annual as payment for building works. And I think that wouldn't be actually the large number to start think about the national support scheme. And what we also have to look at this flexibility of instruments, because out of the EU support program, we have also commercial loans where the apartment owner associations, they come to the bank and they say, this process of EU program is quite heavily for us. We don't have a capacity. We would like to take a commercial loan. And these loans in average are smaller, let's say starting from 20,000 euro up to maybe 170,000 euro. For different means, for changing a roof, also for facades and whatsoever. And then here we have opportunity maybe to have a different also financing instrument, maybe more guarantee. From municipal level, we see a lot of support municipalities in Latvia are trying to provide, and also discussing this national support scheme, we could look what is the best way. For example, some of the municipalities supporting by concrete, let's say 15,000 euro each house, multi-apartment house, which is renovated. Another municipality, we see this is a rebate for 10 years or 5 years on real estate tax after the renovation of this house. Now, also, we see some municipalities are supporting with the municipal budget as dotation the housing maintenance company, which is helping the people to get to the renovation, and they are subsidizing the bank this margin costs. So there is a kind of experience already, and my answer would be we need to start to talk about the national support scheme and the flexibility of instruments, and then we will give best support to apartment owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilse, for this comment. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there's an ongoing exchange of additional comments in the chat area by Janek, Nils, and Kai. Some additional information on the Danish EPC, on the impact of the Danish EPC certificate, that is system on the value of apartments and dwellings. So there has been direct correlation of having good energy performance figures and the value of the real estate. So that's an important point here. There's also an important point by Janek about the availability of financing, and basically it looks like he supports the idea of the need to switch away from too much reliance on these cyclical sources of financing, which are important, of course, but still he's in favor of financial instruments rather than grants. But I'd say, having studied also, having done analysis on the barriers and the ways how to overcome the barriers to energy efficiency, there's plenty of academic and scientific research on this, about policy analysis, about energy efficiency, and it is always good to have different combinations of availability of financing sources, and there's no one single best solution. There are different purposes for different schemes, and it looks like although if we would say switch away completely from grants, from the grant system for everybody, for all the target groups, then it might be detrimental to those not so well off. So probably a balanced approach and slightly more tailor-made approach to different target groups when it comes to energy efficiency, financing, and investment would help and be in place. But I mean, it's not that we can throw everything in one bag. I think even if there was one bag where we throw everything in, the bag has to have different compartments so that we can be flexible in terms of support to those groups which are more vulnerable, not only to energy prices, but also to the due to their ability to pay for energy efficiency investment. So probably a nice balance would be a good support. And it's nothing impossible. It's a possible thing to organize financing or financial channels like that. I had somebody wanted to comment. There was a whisper or something. All right. One-stop shop thing, which I have written down for myself in my notes. We spoke about one-stop shop approach, and from the analysis that has been done during the previous years, it seems that one-stop shop would be indeed part of the solution, of a good solution. As currently, personally, I and those who are researching and analyzing the impact of energy efficiency regulatory framework have noted that still, despite upgrades to existing support schemes and how they are administered and how an idea can translate into a practical project, still in many cases the ability of even of the house owners, apartment owners associations, the ability to implement a rather complex project is limited. In fact, I've heard on several instances the impression that, or actually reflection on actual situations where initially the homeowners association has began the process of preparing the project and has tried to implement it with their own capacity, but they have soon realized that they need, in fact, a professional project manager for this, which is almost a full-time person who is dedicating the time fully to managing this project, at least at the initial stage when there's plenty of preparatory work to be done. So that's also part of the barrier. And I wonder if there is any experience at hand. Currently, we have it, maybe some of the examples from Poland or Denmark or somewhere else. If there are examples where there is a service.
Dzień dobry. Tak, słucham.
Dzień dobry, Lucyna, Santander.
Yes, nice. So if there are examples where some of these instruments actually are able to finance professional project managers for this purpose. I don't know, Andrzej, you switched on the video. Maybe you can comment on this. I'm not sure.
Well, this experience that we have done in Poland, not for multifamily buildings, but for public buildings, is that we use the so-called the general contractor function in the construction sector to develop and implement the energy efficiency project in the public building of a small municipality. Why? Because the municipality wanted to do the deep renovation of the school building up to the nearly zero energy standard, and it was not our idea, but this was the idea of the head of municipality. But he asked us as let's say experienced person how to do it. We organized the project management unit for him, and this kind of service was also eligible cost for granting the EU contribution to this project. We offered as a general contractor the total service from the energy audit through fundraising, it means preparation of application to the EU funds, then public procurement, then supervision of works, then the monitoring of this project. And so it is, I think, if we don't understand what is one-stop shop, it's easy to understand. This is general contractor on behalf, working on behalf of the municipality, who is responsible on all the works, and the general contractor is also ESCO company because it provides one service more. It is the guarantee of savings. It is the guarantee of savings. So these are two models, in fact, most advanced. And I think that this cost of such function is eligible among the costs which could be subsidized by EU funds. It is eligible in Poland. It is should be eligible in Latvia. This is only the question to decide and to use this very well proven scheme of general contractor.
Thanks, very valuable comment. I think it's also an encouragement in a way to pursue this path. Otherwise, it seems that many projects are simply stuck because people are not either not aware of this possibility, or the regulatory framework is not there to assist them in this way, and people just start delaying the decision about implementing energy efficiency measures. Right. I don't see currently any new comments in the chat. There's still a possibility. We still have, I don't know, say 5-10 minutes that we can dedicate to questions, answers, and comments. I know that the presentation from the Ministry of Economy by Karina was slightly on a slightly different aspect, which is an extremely important aspect. It was not so much focused on financing, but rather than on decision making, which is part of the whole value chain. Okay, I probably finalize my comment after Edgars will have commented. Edgars, go ahead.
Yes, as you Reins asked to those questions, I may ask maybe the partners in this project may have experience and good practice how actually to bundle the projects to make them on the bigger scale for financing and attracting construction companies. Maybe some tips and tricks regarding most probably there are regulatory barriers existing, and how to actually convince maybe those also the end users, the residents, to go on the scale of these sort of projects. Maybe there is some good experience in here in the room.
Well, I don't like to majorize this meeting, but concerning the residential buildings, multi-family buildings, we have good example, because we have a separate support scheme, which is called white certificates, which are trade-able documents regulated by the law of energy efficiency. And to obtain these white certificates, it is necessary to do the energy efficiency audits and supply applications for the certificates to the Central Energy Regulatory Authority. And the minimum of savings which is required for application is 10 tons of equivalent oil. What means that it is not possible to achieve this by one building, residential building after renovation. But the energy auditors are quite smart in Poland, so they are collecting in one application few homeowner associations or even housing cooperatives in direct cooperation with buildings managers, buildings administrators. So such bundling is possible in one application, and the energy auditor can be even can work on behalf of such group of homeowners associations for this application, and it works quite well since 3 years. So I think that again 500 or even more homeowner associations have used the schemes in one application. There should be, in fact, 5, 10, but could be 100, 1,000 without any. So this is the question: how to find the solution. Technical.
Okay, so basically it means that there's also no delay in terms of implementation, because there is permanent demand for these projects, and there is permanent readiness to finance those projects, I believe.
Yes, because the white certificates are trade-able on the special exchange. So if the work are finished, The white certificates are issued by the energy regulatory authorities and can be sold on this exchange. It is not much money. It is not so much money that can be obtained by the loan with subsidy, as I presented. But again, for those who are not willing to take loans and subsidy, this is a way to finance it and to bundle the projects.
It's a good point. Thank you. So I see that Yannick is also commenting that the white certificates can finance just a few % of investment, but of course, still, as I understand, it's part of the solution. It's not all of the solution, but it can be part of the solution. So that's good to know.
The best of the white certificates that they stress the quality of performance. So it's a very good tool to match. And if the quality is high, hopefully we can get more reward in grants. Hopefully.
Thank you for the comments, Yannick. Good. Right. So, well, we are moving towards the end of the consultation of the event. I'm trying now to pull together different aspects that we have covered today, and if there are no immediate comments or questions, let me try to summarize what we have found out today, what conclusions we can probably make from today's discussion. One thing is clear, that energy costs will be rising, so there's clear incentive to invest in energy efficiency. On the other hand, construction costs are also rising. There is inflation present, and it affects the price of materials and also of construction services. So probably one of the challenges is to not be lagging behind with decision making about investing in energy efficiency. Another aspect is, of course, the scalability of different solutions for financing energy efficiency, and probably a swift way how to or a nice way how to organize that a project turns from idea into reality in a swift way. Such solutions should be promoted and advertised, probably, I don't know, on TV. And information should be given about these good examples to the general population, especially, of course, those who live in the multi-apartment buildings, because those are the main target group. Just on a side note, just a side note, I think just around 3% of the apartment buildings in Riga that are not newly built apartment buildings have been renovated. So there's huge potential for energy efficiency market also in terms of how much money can be invested into this segment of economy. So it's huge money locally in local terms. So right. So regulatory environment. We also yet again reiterated the importance of the notion of one-stop shop. Thank you, Andrzej, for pointing out that in fact the general contractor or an ESCO can serve the purpose of one-stop shop. I believe there can also be other possibilities. I know that some of the financial institutions which provide financing or co-financing for energy efficiency projects also provide consultancy services. But they could be details which may vary from one case to the other. But still, of course, it's not that people are left without consultation and without advice, but more advice probably is needed. So in this grand scheme of hugs, carrots and sticks, probably we should find the right balance between all of these. So we also mentioned the possibility to use taxes as an instrument for stimulating investment in energy efficiency. That's definitely one of the solutions, part of the solution to the issue of scalability of or making an investment in energy efficiency a mass product or a mass event. Currently, we are having too few projects per total need to improve energy efficiency. So one of the biggest challenges is to achieve this massive scale of energy efficiency. That is one thing, and one-stop shop principle definitely would provide support to homeowners associations. Right. What else did I write down in my notes? The certificate systems, definitely the digitalization of energy performance data, and also introduction and actual implementation of a energy performance certificate system might also well be a good stimulus for making a decision in favor of investing in energy efficiency, especially in multi-apartment buildings. Otherwise, if there is no investment in renovating a building, the conditions inevitably deteriorate, and it means that the value of this real estate falls. And it's basically the value of what you own as an inhabitant in a multi-apartment building is decreasing, and especially if you have been paying credit for your apartment for 20-25 years, and the house has not been renovated, probably one can surely say that you will be losing money and paying even more. You'll continue paying for energy that is wasted, and also for the decrease of value of your property where you have invested your money. So that is another important aspect where there's still place for improvement. There are, of course, plenty of details that probably many of us pinned to the page where we were making notes from this meeting, but I think we can build on what we heard today. I would like to thank, first of all, I would like once again to remind you that there will be a recording of this event available. So if you wish, you can refer back to the recording of this meeting. You can browse through the comments also in the chat. There were several interesting and valuable links provided by some of the participants, so please explore those. There were also links provided in some of the presentations, so you're also welcome to explore those links, which will lead you to more detailed information about specific projects and solutions to energy efficiency. I would also like to thank all the speakers of this event, Serena from the European Commission, also Karina from the Ministry of Economy, Andrzej from the Polish, from the National Energy Conservation Agency of Poland, and also Kai from the Danish agency State of Green, and last but not least, Ilze Kukute, representing the Finance Latvia Association. So I think we have had different pieces of puzzle today. Well, eventually came together, and if not completely, and if they are not aligned, if these pieces of puzzle are not yet aligned perfectly, so I hope that with each and every workshop that we provide, the possibility to present a case and ask questions and comment, that these pieces of puzzle are aligned in a better way, improving our knowledge and stimulating thinking about potential solutions and about things which can be improved. And of course, the wish of the experts involved in this series of around Baltic projects is that the summary thesis or the summaries after these events actually reach decision makers and also policy makers, and they take into consideration the suggestions that have been put on the table and improve the regulatory framework, and also think about the possibilities to optimize the availability of financing for energy efficiency. And with this, I would like to thank all the our audience as well for being with us for these last 3 hours, and want to remind that this event has been possible owing to financial support of the European Commission and the Round Baltic, within the framework of the Round Baltic project, and partners in Poland and Denmark and Latvia, of course. And I think that will be enough from my end. And so many thanks to everybody today. That's it from my side. If somebody wants to add something else, you have 1 minute. If not, then we will respect the agenda and the timing reserved for this event. And what can I say? Dismissed, and see you either during the implementation of energy efficiency projects or in workshops in the future. Thank you.